and welcome to this week's
Okay,
video of Learn
so
Quick with
this
Ms.
week
A. This week
is our learning tip video, as I said, and we are going to look at a writing pyramid again. So let me take you to that slide. In my last um, learning tip video, I had introduced this writing pyramid. I'm not going to go into the details of this one. I'm linking the video down below in the description. Check that one out. Basically, it is an analogy of how writing works and what is most important in writing. So I've compared writing, which is structural, just like a pyramid is. You have to build it up bit by bit. So you build up your piece of writing, whether it's creative or factual, or there's a whole gamut of different kinds of writing. But whatever kind of writing you're doing, the most important aspect or part of writing are the ideas. But we often get caught up in accuracy and spelling and punctuation, and we forget that without good ideas, those other things have no meaning. But I'm not going to get into that. Please check out that video if you're interested in finding out what I mean by the writing pyramid. Today, I'm here to discuss with you the most important aspect of writing, which is ideas. Okay, now ideas are what make the heart of writing beat. It's basically the most important aspect of writing. No matter how good someone's handwriting is, no matter how many good words they have used, if what they're talking about, what they're writing about, is not worthy of hearing or reading, the writing falls flat. So today we're going to look at, well, why do some of us struggle with coming up with ideas and what can we do about it? Okay, so I'm going to move on. I'm going to show you this. So honestly, why are ideas so hard to think of? And as a teacher, I have seen again and again that one of the main reasons is we actually overthink this and we doubt ourselves and we often shoot down our own ideas that come to mind thinking, well, it's not good enough. It's already been said. I have heard this again and again as a teacher and as a writer, because I do writing of my own as well as a hobby, that everything has been said already. But here is my point: it has not been said by you. Your way of thinking, your way of looking at something, describing something, or even your way of coming up with a story is unique because you are original, your ideas are original. And this is something we need to keep in mind when we often shoot down or we discard or we ignore ideas that come to our minds because we think someone else must have said this already, or this is not good enough or original enough. So it's more a psychological barrier. So that's a reason why ideas are hard to come up with. So, what can we do then? How can we think of some cool ideas? Now, I have to tell you that there are many, many, many more ways one can think of cool ideas. Each one of these ways that I'm going to share with you, they can be broken down into further detail, but I'm going to share some broad categories that I have seen as teaching in my classroom, and I have seen as a writer myself talking to other writers. First of all, when I'm talking about coming up with ideas, I'm not talking about factual writing here, okay? So I'm not talking about writing a scientific dissertation or writing a piece of argument, although arguments or persuasive writing can often get quite creative. I am basically talking about descriptive and creative writing, writing where you are given quite a bit of freedom. And funnily enough, that freedom seems to work against some of the writers, some people who just kind of freak out and go, well, I haven't been told exactly what I'm going to write about. How can I even think about ideas? Usually, these kinds of writers fare better with factual writing. So, for example, if they're given a piece of writing, say, okay, can you describe the water cycle? Yes, it has got factual details. It's got step-by-step way that the water cycle operates, way easier. But if they're given, I don't know, the image of a fountain and they're told to do a creative, descriptive piece of writing, they seem to struggle. So here are some things that you can do about it. Personification. Now, personification, as we know, it's a figure of speech. It's basically giving living qualities to non-living things. So it's making your pencil talk, or a tree talk to you, or a flower feel emotions. And that way we are, because we as human beings, we understand ourselves. So when an inanimate object or a non-living object starts to behave like a living thing, we seem to be able to relate to it more, and we seem to enjoy that kind of writing. So that is great. So suppose, let us say that you are um, you're in the classroom and you've been given a piece of writing, and you've been given a picture as a prompt, or you've been told, okay, write about a haunted house. Hey, you don't necessarily have to, you can, but you can also make that house come alive and do the writing from the point of view of the house. Or you've been asked, given a picture of a broken pencil. Why don't you pretend to be that pencil, and think about, okay, how did the pencil become so battered and broken? How does the pencil feel about it? Who did the pencil belong to? What has it seen, etc., etc. Another thing you can do is you can give that inanimate object that is now behaving like a human being, you can give it a unique personality. Look at what you know, look at the familiar surroundings. For example, look at your own relatives. Do you have an aunt or uncle perhaps that you find slightly funny or quirky, and maybe you can model the personality of your pencil or the haunted house on them, and then that gives you something to pull from, like your experiences with that relative, with that aunt or uncle or cousin or whoever. And then you can build up your stories or your creative piece of writing, taking from your own memories of that. I hope this kind of makes sense. I could go on about it, but I'd better move on. Humor. Now, this is a great one. Humor actually never fails, provided it is good quality humor. Think about the stories like, for example, the David Williams stories, or writers who make fun of themselves. They're usually the central characters, or the central characters telling the story. If you can take digs at yourself, that is actually the best kind of humor. However, we have to remember that being rude or unkind or using swear words isn't always regarded as humorous, because if those things are not handled really well, they can backfire on you. So be funny, but remember, do not be rude or unkind. Okay. Another thing you can do is think of what if situations. This technique is kind of called making the familiar or the well known turning it into something unfamiliar. So here's an example. What if suddenly the human race began to feel sleepy at daytime and wide awake at night? So you're basically flipping what is a routine social situation, where we know that we are awake at daytime, we go to work, we go to school, um, and at night we sleep. What if that flips? Can you create a story out of that? Suppose you've been given a picture where there is a house, at nighttime, and a single light is coming from a window. You could probably, if you wanted to, create almost like a dystopian situation and describe how in, I don't know, 2,500 years from now, human race has survived. However, they become nocturnal creatures. What then? Suddenly you've got a lot of license, because you're writing about something in the future. There's no right or wrong, you know. Anything can happen. So you can create these kinds of what if situations. They can be fairy tale like, dystopian like. It's your choice, really. All right. And again, you can either write seriously, or you can be very funny about it, be humorous about it. You can even write the whole thing and then claim that it was just a dream, it was a nightmare you had. you know Honestly, you have a lot of freedom. Don't be scared of that freedom. Use it, control it. Okay. A very safe place to start is looking at well-known stories that um, the audience that you're writing for. Your teacher, if you're writing for your teacher is used to children's stories. If you're writing for another audience, if you're writing for your friends or family to read, pick stories that you think they'll be familiar with. And then you can change the ending, you can change the middle, you can change the setting, you can put it in another time. You can change the main character and make the I don't know, a subordinate character, secondary character, into the main character. And you can write your own version. You don't have to write the whole story. You can say, write maybe a part of the story and say, this is what happened. Actually, this is what happened, and that is what happened. So then again, you're taking from something you know, so you're not having to think of each and every character, each and every idea by yourself, but you're also adding your own personality, your own right of voice, your own thoughts and ideas to it. So that is a very, very good combination of the two. Now, descriptive writing, right? So, where you're expected to use, or if you do use figures of speech, um, relevant, powerful vocabulary that makes that writing stand out. You're given a photo, you're given an image, you're given a video. Use your five senses. That doesn't mean you're going to list, I see, I hear, I think. No, you did that when you were little, right? When you were in elementary school, primary school. You're not going to do that anymore. But you can still use your five senses. So if you're given a cute photo of, I don't know, a little kitten in a pink basket, maybe, you might, again, you have the full freedom. You can make that kitten talk to you and go, hey, hello, what are you looking at? Do you think I'm looking good? Do you think I wanted to be in this basket? And you're actually speaking from that kitten's perspective, and you can make that kitten a little bit, I don't know, philosophical, or a little bit critical of the human race. Or you could just describe what you could see. You could imagine that the kitten would be very soon um, eating some food and purring on the owner's lap, or in a nice cozy basket. You can talk about how the fur feels to the touch. Um, all sorts of things. If you are given the image of, um, I don't know, a rainy day, you can talk about the smell of the damp earth, where the rain is being soaked up by the soil. You can talk about the droplets of water falling from the leaves. You can talk about, I don't know, birds chirping from the nest, and they're worried about, they're trying to keep their little babies safe. So you can just imagine that you can actually, you're in that scene, in that picture, and you can see, you can think, you can hear. Okay, so that's a great way of being descriptive. Fan fiction. Now, this is, I've gone into story writing now, and I've got not very good clip art of some famous writers. Shakespeare, I believe, Charles Dickens. Um, I think that's Oscar Wilde with the slightly longer hair, and that's Jane Austen. Now, these are all, of course, very, very well known writers, but it can be any writer that you're for. I mean, it could well be that you write your own version of Harry Potter fan fiction. So, again, you are allowed to, that's not cheating, you're modeling, you are writing inspired by the best. Okay, so you can do your writing like that. You can model your writing and on your favorite author and write fan fiction. Again, that gives you a support. You are not having to think of everything. You have got a structure in place. You have got some characters. The writer has already, the original author has already given you material. You are just building upon it. I'm personally very fond of writing fan fiction. I write it for my own entertainment, for my own family's entertainment. So that's another way, definitely. Okay. So these are some ways I've shared with you, and I've said before, there are many more ways you can do this. Okay, so you have you've decided what you're going to do. Now, how will you begin your writing? What's the process? If you have the time, so again, I'm talking about the classroom situation. If this writing piece of writing you're doing is for your as an assignment or homework and you've got time, fantastic. Even if it's in class, now again, don't second guess yourself, don't shoot down your ideas. Do what I called, a bit gross, but I call it ideas vomit. Just write down everything and use note taking. Don't write full sentences. Write down the keywords, the main words. Usually, those are the nouns and the verbs. All ideas that come to your mind. Okay, so you might use 5 to 10 minutes for your planning. Do not judge any ideas. Trust your brain. Your mind actually has more coherence than you give it credit for. It's more creative than you know. So just trust it. Let your ideas come. Write down the main key ideas, short phrases, and the keywords. Then I usually use a highlighter. Ask my students to use a highlighter or 2 or 3 highlighters. Start to look for patterns to group your ideas together. You're going to find that your ideas were not as random as you were suspecting them to be. There will be patterns that will start to emerge. So you might have some say, for example, you might have some characters doing certain things. You can highlight them the same color. So I give you the example of the kitten talking. Okay, so you might say the kitten's talking about how it feels being part of the family and being, you might highlight or underline those using one color. Then the kitten might be talking about comparing it to the life that it has come from, or what if it was being brought up by cats around its cat brothers and sisters. You might highlight those another color. Why? Because when you're writing, when you're organizing, which I'm going to talk about in another writing tip video, because organization needs has its own ways of doing it, which I will be talking to you about. However, this kind of color coding, or even using brackets if you don't want to use highlighters, it starts to group your ideas and give your text structure, and it gives it a flow. Ideas that after that you file out, these don't really fit in, you can cull them, you can take them out, or just leave them and say, I might or might not use them in my final writing. Then you can begin to write and tweak. That's the writing process, but I'm not talking about the writing process at the moment. This is just about how to organize your ideas, how to come up with ideas and how to organize them, or how to begin to put them on paper as planned for your writing. All right. And then, my friends, practice, practice, practice. Be very patient with yourself. Give it time. If you are somebody who's never enjoyed writing and find writing as a chore, if you use these tips and other tips that you know about and just give it a go, I can promise you that it does get better, because 75% of the problem lies, maybe more than 75%, lies in the way we think. We love to succeed. We don't like when we find something challenging and we tend to avoid it. But if we can overcome that barrier, if we can change that mindset and go, you know what, I can see there are some things I can do. Writing isn't as difficult as I thought it was, or it isn't as confusing. You will get there. So keep at it. You got this. And if you have found this video of any use, please consider liking it, sharing it with your friends and family. Subscribe to my channel, press that bell icon so that next time a video comes out, which will come out next week, you know, and you can watch it. And hey, thank you for being with me so far.